The bane of every competitive player in Overwatch is to get logged, spammed, or otherwise randomly sent back to spawn. And chances are that even some of you guys who don't compete on ladders sometimes get tired of losing to what is widely considered to be a low skill hero. And in Overwatch, at least if the community was to be believed, we have those kinds of heroes aplenty. Ever since Brigitte was introduced to competitive play in Season 10, the discussion surrounding low skill heroes has been gaining popularity. And that for good reason. Even heroes that were previously not considered low skill have gotten a bit of a bad reputation in the meta that crystallized throughout Season 10. I mean, the way a lot of teamfights were won came down to spamming down tanks until you get your ultimates to then just hit Q and watch the dragons devour the entirety of the enemy team in a graviton surge. As much as spamming down tanks for ultimate charge is not the most impressive display of skill in the game, my plan for today's video is not to convince you that certain heroes that have a bad reputation take skill after all. If you firmly believe that some heroes don't take skill, then no amount of babbling is gonna convince you of the contrary. What I want to do instead is show you the other side of the coin. I want to talk about some of those heroes who are labeled low skill and show you their place in the game. Do they really need to exist? And what would happen if they didn't? Now, without wasting any more time, let's get right into it. I think when talking about low skill heroes, Junkrat often comes to mind first in many discussions, and the reasons for that should be rather obvious. To say that Junkrat needs prediction skills would be a bit of a stretch relative to how many players approach this hero's utility. Naturally, what makes him so strong is his ability to deny entry through choke points, area of denial in its finest, and for that purpose, spamming into the general direction of the enemy team is usually good enough. I don't think most people would argue against the general idea that mastering a hero is a very different beast compared to simply getting value out of them. That's why we talk about skill floors and skill ceilings. How easily can I make this hero work, and how much pure skill can I put into them to end up distinguishing myself from other players who are not as good as me? Yeah, I dare say that the skill floor is rather low, and the ceiling isn't that high either. But Junkrat fills a very important role in Overwatch, which is that of, yes again, area of denial. AOD is considered as much of a meme as zoning ultimates are, even though both of these things are actually very inherent to this game in a competitive environment. But there are a few reasons why Junkrat is such an annoying hero to deal with. For one, yes, of course it is aggravating to lose to somebody when it feels like they killed you in an unskillful fashion. But another problem is that Junkrat punishes very obvious mistakes very quickly. If you dare run in front of your tanks, or if your team is indecisive in its engagements, then a hero like Junkrat is there to shred you to bits. Nobody likes to admit to their faults, but many players hate it when their mistakes are taken advantage of. Which is also in part why dive comps have such a bad reputation. It is by far the best composition to punish players who are out of position. Now, if you already consider what Junkrat is good at and how he takes advantage of your mistakes, you might already see him in a bit of a different light. Try to avoid choke points, make sure you don't run in front of your tanks, etc. But now also consider what Overwatch would look like if Junkrat was not in the game. Anyone remember the Slambulance composition from a few seasons ago? You know, Quad Tank, Moira, Lucio? Junkrat was really the only effective counter against that composition, and it's for reasons like that why I believe that Junkrat is a necessary evil in this game. You can't rely on Reaper to diffuse tank-heavy compositions because of his range limitations, and you can't rely on Hanzo alone for AOD because of his lack of AoE damage. Tank-heavy compositions will be broken to no extent if we didn't have a hero like Junkrat. But let's move on to our next culprit for now, Mercy. I reckon that Mercy is probably number one on many people's list of heroes that presumably don't take a lot of skill. And I would agree, but what she lacks in mechanical skill requirements, she makes up for in experience. Believe it or not, but Mercy playstyles can actually vary quite a bit going from player to player, and it often depends on the team. Can you get away with a ballsy res? Do you have to be more in the back, bait out a dive, and then reconnect with your team? While there are not a ton of mechanical techs you can learn, a lack of experience or a tendency for bad decisions becomes very apparent when playing Mercy at a high level. For a hero that is apparently so easy to play, I have seen a truckload of players who are really, and I mean really, bad at it. But Mercy too, in my opinion, is a necessary evil in this game, because what she brings to the table is a reliable amount of healing. Why is it so reliable? Because it doesn't take any skill to pull it off. You simply look at your teammates and you press mouse 1. Some of you guys might have realized that already, but having a DPS Moira or a bad aim Ana on your your team is often a really big deal. Their healing always has some kind of limitation attached to it, whether it is connected to distance or an ammo count with reliance on pinpoint accuracy. As much as we all might want to live in a dream world where every player on ladder provides the mechanical skill necessary to play heroes like Ana, that is simply never going to happen. And it especially won't happen in Overwatch, a game specifically marketed with inclusion as a major selling point. Allowing somebody to help support their team without needing ridiculous amounts of mechanical skill means that you can always fall back to a safe pick that allows for a constant stream of healing to be there. Mercy is to the support roster what D.Va is to your team when you don't have a confident hitscan player while opposing a Pharah. Pharah's only real counter is pinpoint accuracy, a demanding mechanical skill. But even if you don't have that level of skill to outright take her out, you could still play D.Va and harass the crap out of her. In a game that was built around the idea of inclusion, we need low skill alternatives to deal with otherwise problematic situations. Most players in the game specialize on something, and if you don't happen to have the right specialist on your team, then that is already a big issue. And those are the kinds of situations where having these heroes in the game helps to make sure that your team is remotely competitive. Not because of raw mechanical skill, but because of smart decision making and good team play. Because if you believe that Overwatch is a game that should be all about mechanics, then boy oh howdy, you must have been playing a very different game to me all this time. The decisions you make are as important as the skill you display on any hero you pick up. So a player who is bad at positioning or decision making can be as much of a liability to your team as a player who is lacking in mechanical skill. The last hero I wanted to cover in today's video with a list of examples you should consider is Baguette. But this is where I kinda need your help, because I can't for the life of me figure out why this hero was introduced to the game. A hero so undemanding in both mechanical skill and game sense that her viability almost entirely relies on the heroes you play against and whether or not they allow you to get close. A hero supposedly there to counter dive when an anti-dive composition already existed, just that only few players ever took advantage of it. A hero so oppressive and unfun to play against that I cannot wrap my head around why she even exists in the first place. So this is where your input is required. Do you think Brigitte has a place in the game? What is her purpose in Overwatch? And how do we excuse her lack of mechanical requirements? If you have as little of a clue as me, then why not leave your own top 3 most hated low skill heroes down in the comment section below with a bit of an explanation attached as to why you dislike them so much. I think a little venting should do good for all of us every so often. But before we wrap up the video, a quick shout out in favor of, well, myself. This Wednesday, that is July 4th, I am planning to celebrate my birthday over on twitch.tv/Terios. I don't know yet what I'm gonna do, and I don't know if my internet will allow for a stream without causing problems, but assuming I can stream, I will definitely try and do something. So if you happen to be free that day, feel free to check me out over on Twitch. You can find all my social media stuff down in the description below to stay up to date on all the details. But this is me done for the day, as I talk about low skill heroes in Overwatch and why they are a necessary evil. All I try to show you guys is that this game is not all about your APM. It's also about understanding its mechanics and using its resources in a smart fashion. And I hope that this discussion made you consider the other side of that argument a bit more. At any rate, thank you everybody so much for watching. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and maybe share this video with a friend you think would find it interesting. Thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you all next time.